when Aaron Rodgers signed up to be a New York Jet, if you'd have asked me who was better, Favre or Rodgers, I probably would have said Rodgers. Now I think I'd say Favre.
Really?
Yeah, Favre had a final act.
Yeah.
Favre left the Packers. He was okay. He was good with Coach Mangini and the Jets, and then got hurt and wasn't the end of the year.
He was playing really well.
Right, he was playing really well, got hurt. The season ended poorly. But then went to the Vikings, almost won MVP, finished second. They got to the conference championship, and then his final year, abject as that. You know what I mean? Just a terrible year. He was done. Right. Fine, so be it. But he had that one last breath. Not only did Rodgers not have the one last breath, it to me, I never quite understood why a guy who before Patrick Mahomes came into the league, I would have said is the most talented natural thrower of my lifetime. And I say that with respect to Dan Marino, but also knowing that Marino's apex, I was literally 1 year old. So, you know what I mean? Right. I don't have a great recollection of it.
Well, you have some recollection.
Some, of course. I mean, come on, he's still grinding. But of people that I've watched play football regularly, and I never quite understood, like, why he didn't, what he was missing. And I felt like his time with the Jets put a real microscope on it, or a magnifying glass, I should say, where a lot of the intangible stuff, leadership stuff, taking accountability, he doesn't, to me, seem to have when the other great quarterbacks do. And lastly, Brew, and then I give it to you, this is incredibly rare for an all-time great quarterback to have their career end on this type of whimper. So I picked the 10 best quarterbacks to retire, the last 10 great quarterbacks to retire, if you will. And what you're going to see is how many, between their retirement and their last playoff appearance, between their retirement and their last playoff win. So of the last 10 great quarterbacks to retire, and if you would have included Big Ben, his number would be 0 as well. They made the playoffs. 7 of them made the playoffs in their final year. Mm-hmm. And all of them but Troy, who didn't want to retire, got kind of forced out due to concussions, won a playoff game their last year or their second to last year. For Rodgers, it's been 3 years without the playoffs, 4 years without a win. So none of these other guys ended in obscurity, so to speak. That is very, very rare in the modern era under the current playoff format, all of that. And so I know that's a lot to digest. But again, the number on the screen there is it's just years between retirement and last playoff appearance and last playoff win. And for everybody, it's 0s and 1s across the board. Rodgers would be 3 and 4.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up Favre to start, because probably like you, for years, I have felt like Aaron Rodgers is definitely better than Brett Favre. Like, not to diminish Favre, he was an all-time great, but that Rodgers was better. But I agree that this last act did make me say, is he?
Right.
And again,
it's not personal stuff, because Favre's personal stuff's way worse than any Aaron stuff.
But as far as personal football stuff,
yes,
just like, I mean, Favre, we know, won the 3 straight MVPs, got his team to 2 Super Bowls?
Back to back.
Super Bowls. And it just seems like probably, I'm not in these locker rooms, there are some teammates that speak highly of Aaron Rodgers, some not so much. Like you said, Favre had his issues. But it seems like he probably was better in the locker room. That's just
Coach Mangini swears he was great in that locker room.
Yeah, so to me, look, a guy not playing well in his 40s, no big deal. He's obviously still first ballot Hall of Famer, probably top 10 quarterback of all time, certainly the modern era. But I think when he left Green Bay, even though it was on a down note because they didn't make the playoffs, I think the feeling, and especially maybe his last few years in Green Bay, the feeling was, man, Aaron Rodgers they never built around him. He's unfortunate because the Packers didn't know how to build around this guy, or the defense failed him and they couldn't hold the team in the playoffs, and that's why he didn't get to more Super Bowls. I think now, somewhat after his last couple years in Green Bay, we saw him fail time and time again in the NFC Championship games. But certainly now, after this Jets tenure, I think the feeling's gone to he was a big part of the problem too. You know, it's not just the Packers didn't build around him. The Packers didn't have great defenses. It was a lot on Aaron Rodgers. And it's not just the play. It's all, his image is taking a major hit because of the off the field stuff.
Yes.
Because of, you know, the maybe running for vice president with RFK and the ayahuasca retreats and the darkness retreats and all the lying about getting vaccinated and stuff. Like, his image has really, you know, he used to be in the commercials and he was funny. I get it that he kind of kept to himself more and people didn't know him as well. But then once he kind of started getting more out there, it seems like, I think that really is big, and that has hurt his legacy to some degree.
A little bit of revisionist history, or just redo history, we'll call it. If he doesn't snap his Achilles last year, do you think it goes differently, or were we always going to eventually come to this point?
I think we were always going to come to this point. I think that it obviously accelerated it, and it also might have accelerated his eccentricity.
That's what I
think the time, because he's so online and so, you know what I mean? All of those things. But it doesn't, here, pre-snapped Achilles, and this is to me the important part of it. Like, I was just trying to do this in my head in reverse order. So, Josh, if I get any facts wrong here, just shout in my ear. But I was thinking about, like, how did it end for him in Green Bay before he went to the Jets? Playoffs on the last year, so in reverse order. Yep. Playoffs on the line, at home, against a Lions team that had done nothing and was eliminated from the playoffs, played one of his worst games of the year.
But don't you, sorry to keep you going.
Sure.
I almost view that in a different light now that the Lions were ascending.
But they didn't have anything to play for. And I get they played hard, but
that was not a great team yet. That was a Lions team that year, I think it started 2-6 or something, gotten super hot, and it was like, oh, wait, they might be able to make the playoffs, and then they knew going into that game they weren't. But still, even ascending or not, you're Aaron Rodgers, the back-to-back defending MVP at that point in time. You have a home game. Your team's red hot. Remember, they had won 5 in a row or whatever. He plays worst game of the year, and they lose. The year before, they have the bye. They are the 1 seed. They are playing.
He's the MVP.
He's the MVP. They score 10 points in a home loss to San Francisco. The year before that, he is the MVP. You have the Bucs with Brady come to town, and this is his moment in his building, and I think he had 3 first-half turnovers and then made it close late.
Well, the game was over at halftime.
Right.
He made some plays
it wasn't because, remember, he could have then run when they were down 8, but whatever. But the first half was the killer. And then I think the year before that, they lost to San Francisco in the NFC Championship game or something, and Rodgers said, we got to get these games at home, and then the next year it was. So, again, like, you're at home against Detroit to go to the playoffs. You're at home against San Francisco as the 1 seed in the MVP. You're at home against a Brady Bucs wildcard team in order to go to the Super Bowl. That's how it ended in Green Bay pre-Jets.
And to be honest, that's how it was in Green Bay after the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Like, I talked about ad nauseum his struggles in the NFC title games, and his stats are bad in those games. And so it was even before that. This sums it up to me. The Jets aren't getting rid of him because of his play. Even though he wasn't vintage Aaron Rodgers or even close, they're probably not going to get a better quarterback than what they had last year. I mean, and I know he didn't play as well as these numbers suggest, but still, these are the numbers. He was 8th in the league in passing yards per game and total. He was 7th in the league in touchdown passes. He threw more touchdown passes than Mahomes. 28 touchdown passes, 11 picks. I mean, again, he probably didn't play as well as those numbers, but if he's viewed as a culture killer now. That's what he's viewed as. And if he weren't viewed as that, I think there's no doubt the Jets would have brought him back.
I think that's right. And just real quick, well, I guess we're staying on.
Yeah, we're going to move on. Yep. All right, so what's next for Aaron Rodgers? The odds are out. I don't know if there's a clean landing spot. Well, we'll kick it around. The Steelers have the best odds to land Aaron. And then it's the Raiders, the 49ers, the Vikings, the Colts and the Rams tied with the Titans.
Who's number 3? Wow.
Yeah, I don't know why they're on there.
Well, ask DraftKings.
He's always wanted to play for the 49ers.
He's always wanted to play for him. They've got a $60 million decision to make. Well,
I see no way that's happening.
Well, I mean,
so what's the best lanes? What you're saying?
I think there's a clear one. Pittsburgh. And I'll go Raiders. They're not going anywhere, right? And does Devontae even want to go back there because they could be a package deal? San Francisco. Whether you think he's better than Purdy or not, I don't. They're not giving up on Brock Purdy at this point to go sign Aaron Rodgers for a year. Minnesota. This is the problem with Minnesota to me, because I agree. You said it the other day. Oh, it seems great. Here's the problem: expectations. If Aaron Rodgers went to Minnesota, they just went 14-3.
Yep.
He would be viewed as that missing piece. You got great receivers. You got a former running back that used to play with you. The defense is great. He would be viewed as the missing piece. And if he did not get them have a 14 wins or do better in the playoffs than they did, if he doesn't play as well as Sam Darnold, which I think is a very real possibility there, it'd do even more damage to his legacy. So I don't think he wants that. Indy could make a little sense, Tennessee, whatever.
Well, Indy's interesting just because a dome, I think a
weak
soft division, not a lot of great defenses that you're going to have to worry about,
Yeah, that one makes some sense.
Philip Riversy, though.
I get it.
I think Pittsburgh's the perfect place. Because Mike Tomlin he's not going to go and kill Mike Tomlin's culture. And Mike Tomlin has actually handled, Antonio Brown.
Well, he's used to the radio show thing. Big Ben did it every week.
Le'Veon Bell, he's had those personalities and handled them. He could, even Russell Wilson going there this year, he could handle these personalities. You know the defense is going to be good. You got some skilled players.
You think
he throws it, he still throws it better than Russ. This year, as good as Russ played, it was moon ball or bust. That's pretty much what their offense was. So Rodgers could, I think, move him down the field more. So if I'm Pittsburgh, I'd definitely be looking at him.
Go ahead, Waz.
I'm doing nothing. I went through those lists. I don't like any of those teams that should either start fresh, just like the Jets, or look for someone else on the market who is going to be like Russell will be available, Kirk Cousins will be available, Mac Jones will be available, Sam Darnold's kind of kicking around. I would go what I'm calling a Josh Dobbsian route, where I'm waiting and seeing if anyone wants to call me when their franchise quarterback goes down.
It's a risk, then you may never get to play again.
Someone's going, knock on wood, it'd be nice to go through a year without any quarterback injuries. But if this next year was last year, just carbon copy, and Dak goes down, if you're Jerry Jones, aren't you calling Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, but
all those calls that Tom Brady used to get. Tua goes down, aren't you calling Aaron Rodgers?
So I'm kind of glad you used that example. Let's say it was this year. Let's say exactly what you said happened. It's a disaster for him. Because by the time Dak went down, they were done. They were cooked already.
Okay, how about Tua's situation? Hey,
2 years ago?
No, Tua this year.
Oh, you want to come in for a month? Because it's his job. You're trying to thread a needle that's not always open.
It's better than going to the Colts and doing nothing.
Why not Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh is just this. If I was Mike Tomlin and I've gone how many years without a playoff win? The Patriots won a Super Bowl.
It was either 16 or 17.
What's the alternative? Russ, Justin,
but this revolving doors of not having a franchise quarterback. It's just a constant.
Well, I just don't think they're going to have one anyway.
I guess the argument for Pittsburgh would be, even if their plan is to draft a kid, whomever, they're not going to be in the top, get Cam or Shador. Anyone else would be, no matter who drafts them, the hope would be you sit for a year and learn because you're a bit raw. Now, all right, I'll answer. Pittsburgh's probably where he will end up. But nobody yell at me. While I do work with DraftKings, and shout out DraftKings, new sponsor of the What's Right podcast.
Oh, wow.
I didn't set those odds. A couple years ago, Brock Purdy coming off a far better year than this year, Kyle Shanahan called him and was like, hey, just so you know, if we can get a future first ballot Hall of Famer, we still love you, we're going to keep you, but we're going to do that with Tom Brady. The idea that then...
that made sense because you didn't know what Purdy was.
That is true. Purdy told us.
Yeah,
Purdy told
true.
Mike Silver.
But Jimmy G's thing, when Tom Brady was first looking around, didn't we think that Jimmy G was Tom Brady's famous quote, like you're sticking with that guy?
No, I thought that we actually got who that was, and that it was.
I thought it was.
Gosh, no. But Brock Purdy, you remember, this was coming off
and that,
Purdy's
to me,
rookie
that made
season.
sense. He had only played
his rookie season,
games,
and he had gotten hurt. Yeah. Whatever it is. All I'm saying is, I would imagine that's the one spot Rodgers would play for close to $0. I would imagine the San Francisco 49ers might like to recapture the negotiating leverage with Brock. He is under contract no matter what. He's going to be a Niner unless they trade him, which I'm not saying they would do. I think we all agree that if Aaron's goal is to win, he has a better chance there than in Pittsburgh. And there are smart, arguably handsome people on television that every once in a while question Kyle Shanahan being a great quarterback whisperer.
Yeah.
And maybe he needs to win sooner than later.
He does.
It's not like
I don't think there's one QB competition like they used to have in the Pro Bowl that Aaron Rodgers could beat Brock Purdy at. Not one.
So
not the way that offense moves. And, I think Brock Purdy's at that. You talked about since they drafted Trey Lance, they wanted someone to move around a little bit.
Well, they've clearly moved on from that.
But Brock can still move around.
Yeah, in that system, that's an adjustment for Rodgers to play, even though it's
I understand all of that. And again, I know that I'm not pulling this out of thin air.
No, I get it.
The other piece of it is, if you remember, when the Niners season was teetering, before we knew they were going to miss the playoffs and before they suffered that second batch of big injuries, Mike Silver had that really interesting article where he mentioned Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers as wondering about them, any of them in San Francisco next year. And Mike Silver is there. He's based in the Bay Area. There's just odd smoke. I was shocked when I saw them third on the odds list. Shocked. It doesn't, every other team there, it's okay, so Pittsburgh doesn't have a quarterback. The Raiders don't have a quarterback. Minnesota's quarterback's a free agent. Indy doesn't have a quarterback. Who's next? Tennessee? They don't have a quarterback.
The Rams are the other. The Rams are a weird one, too.
But the smoke there is, are they trading Matt Stafford?
Yeah.
The Niners are the only one where it's wait a minute. They have a quarterback. He's under contract. Everyone else we don't know who their quarterback is. That is, for whatever it's worth, that's noteworthy to me.
I don't think that would make sense, but because it seems like they view him as their quarterback of the future, and this would ruin that. And then even if Rodgers is there, you think Purdy sits behind Rodgers for a year happily?
I don't know.
I think it's Purdy's job. I think Rodgers would be the one.
Well, then why even bring him in?
I don't know.
Don't even bring him in.
Okay.
I don't see how in a quarterback competition in camp, how could Rodgers beat out Brock Purdy?
I don't know.
I also think the locker room, it seems like Purdy's.
You say in the locker room, man. Okay. I think that there is a Russell Westbrook, this is going to sound weird, quality to Rodgers in this regard. I think current players hold him, that haven't played with him, in far higher regard than the media currently does. That happened with Russ, you know what I mean? Not maybe this, but 3 years ago, everyone in the media was man, Russ is washed. And all the foreign players man, that dude's a dog.
But isn't it about intent? But isn't that compliment towards Russ that the players see intangibles?
No, I
think
the players saw a guy who won league MVP and averaged a triple-double and was you guys don't get it.
But they also talk. Players talk among themselves. They've talked to guys in locker rooms with him.
That's fair. The Niners being there is a interesting.
It's not nothing.
Something. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.